Hip-hop is obsessed with youth, so much so that you barely need to be over the age of 25 before someone's calling you an old head. It's why Drake is obsessed with attaching himself to the hottest upcoming rapper, and it's why Kanye once claimed,
"I only listen to people who are younger than me. These are the only people with ideas. You cannot give me any advice."
A culture that's constantly battling against tradition and innovation, both rappers and fans are always trying to strike this ever-changing balance. As a result, there are some casualties in the shape of artists who struggle to find their place within this strange paradigm, or more accurately, artists whose commitment to their craft feels out of date within a mainstream where chasing trends is more rewarded than devoting yourself to your craft. So without further ado, these are the rappers who we can't help but feel were born in the wrong generation. Among the most renowned spitters that Atlanta has produced in decades, Jid was originally an aspiring football player until fate intervened and put a mic in his hand. Realizing he was at a dead end, Jid decided to hone his craft until his work was undeniable. Beginning his career with the Spillage Village Collective, his work alongside Earth Gang got him noticed by J. Cole, and eventually a deal with Dreamville. And from the outset, Cole had high hopes for him. The result was a series of lauded projects, beginning with The Never Story before he really upped his game in 2018 with DiCaprio 2, which gave him the chance to collab with a litany of major stars including J. Cole himself. With that, he suddenly received a whole host of fanfare and made it abundantly clear that he was willing to go toe-to-toe with anyone in the game.
We just really competing with TDE. This is a whole nother thing. We competing with TDE. That's what needs to be known. Dreamville, we gotta step up. Them is fire. We gotta step it up. Facts.
Having tweeted in 2022 that none of my rap coworkers are trying to rap with me, dog, only women and pop stars, Jid continued to push forward. And on standout performances on Revenge of the Dreamers 3, it seemed like he really should have been hailed as one of the best in the game. But still, it really didn't come to pass. And much like Denzel, it was the rap Reddit blogs and other internet forums that were more willing to give him the adoration he deserved than the mainstream. However, he was about to put them all on notice with his sophomore album, The Forever Story. A masterwork that stands up against some of the best records of the past 10 years, the project saw Jid essentially double the sales of DiCaprio 2 with 30,000 units. Complete with a mega hit single in surround sound, Jid seemed like he was primed for the big features, festival placements, and everything in between. But somehow, it still never really happened. Instead, he continued to get saddled with reductive Kendrick comparisons, which Jid has had to try his best to dispel.
It's just fakely, it's only some tone. You know what I'm saying? Just only cause the show. I don't even think our subject matters, you know what I'm saying, line up. We're talking about black plight in a sense, but I love Kendrick. So even to be compared to somebody that legendary, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going in the right direction.
Critically praised, but not exactly a commercial powerhouse, Jid's pen might be razor sharp, but he hasn't quite gotten the response that he might have in a previous era. And while he might be given the respect he deserves with time, his mindset just isn't conducive to the hyper drama-oriented industry we're in now. Something that Kendrick has no problem participating in. People want me to diss rappers and be that type of artist, but I diss corporations and family members. Stuff that really bothers me, not other artists. I'm just getting over dissing my sister. That's the realest beef I've got in the world. Chasing greatness instead of fleeting fame, Jid exemplifies the mentality of staying true to yourself. And currently, another young artist is attempting to do the same. Having first emerged with the YBN crew, Cordae was immediately an anomaly. Where Namir and Almighty were very much a product of the new school, you could tell within moments that Cordae was an actual student of the game. Boasting an engaging delivery and punchlines to spare, Cordae had all the buzz in the world going into the release of his debut album, The Lost Boy, not to mention some ridiculous cosigns. When it emerged, it resulted in 2 Grammy nominations and a whole host of industry praise.
YBN Cordae.
Oh, now you gotta give him an ear. They got these new artists that you actually, you gotta let them know. You gotta give them an ear. Now you can't just hear him. You gotta listen to him. He be spitting.
But despite the fact that his talent was there to see, it seemed like since Lost Boy dropped, he's only regressed in the mainstream's intriguing him. From there, Cordae unveiled From a Bird's Eye View, his sophomore album, which certainly had its strengths, and further exhibited both his lyrical prowess and the whole host of deliveries that he had in his wheelhouse. But it also failed to connect to audiences on a broader level. And after personally acknowledging that it sold less than The Lost Boy, Cordae began a campaign to speak out against sales metrics.
I think one of my greatest assets is I try to look at all things with no ego, like from an outside perspective. So I can be like, okay, they might sell more records than me, or like they might, just try to think of it. But when I look at it, okay, well, actually I've sold more records than this person. They had to spend less money on me for me to sell these amount of records. I value my hard ticket sales way over like a first week number.
After taking a couple of years to recalibrate, Cordae intended to prove all the doubters wrong by recommitting to his craft. Arriving in the wake of a collaboration alongside Eminem and the dearly departed Juice WRLD, it seemed like the perfect moment for him to release something special. And for all intents and purposes, he did just that with The Crossroads, a record which contained many of his most incisive and riveting tracks that was also aided by a star-studded supporting cast. And yet, those first week sales failed him once again, leading to Charlemagne hitting him with the hard questions when it came time to appear on The Breakfast Club.
I saw one of those crazy YouTube videos and it said, why Cordae's career hit a crossroads. Album flopped horrendously. Do you feel like your album flopped?
Every artist in music, you could find something negative and nitpick at where they lack in some department. You know what I'm saying? But no, because like I had other albums that didn't have like a strong first week. But again, my tour ended up doing super well. And then later on it grows and becomes like a larger thing. Like,
as these kinds of accusations about flopping continued to overshadow the actual music on the tracklist, Cordae kept doubling down, taking to X to further fight in his corner. I want to say now that I don't give a damn about first week sales, especially with the current streaming metrics. I seen someone do 11K first week and then do an arena tour off the same album. In the 90s, 2000s, music was consumed by people actually going to the stores and buying albums. When you did 100K the first week, that meant 100,000 people went and bought the CD. Now, you can have 300,000 people listening to your album on streaming, and the unit's equivalent is 200. Whole point is, let's stop making music about numbers and money. It's killing something that's so pure. Yet another artist that has the raw skill but zero appeal to an audience that he might have had in a previous era, Cordae is trying his best to keep it moving. When discussing his career, he routinely argues that he's striving for longevity, rather than a brief run of momentum that quickly tapers off when they move on to the next project. The problem with him, however, is that he has his back up against the wall in an era where no one seeks to dig under the surface. Now trying to capitalize on the momentum with Act 2 of The Crossroads, Cordae is borrowing the deluxe formula from the modern era in an attempt to bring the doubters to his side once and for all. But sadly for Cordae, the biggest issue he faces is that he, like many others on the list, is striving for greatness in an era where mediocrity sells.
Every time I hear Cordae rap, he's like an old with a young face. Real talk, because he don't belong in this generation. This generation is just talking about sipping lean, popping pills, sliding. Yo, you ever been in class in high school? You'd be like, yo, this one, he's always doing too much. That's what Cordae's music is coming across like, because the rest of the generation are just some lazy that are drug addicts, or some that are just like self-snitching, or some people who just basically like, you know what I mean, just try to catch a catchy hook and then just hum through the bar.
At this exact moment, there's perhaps no one that's feeling the weight of being born in the wrong era predicament quite like Cordae. And to be honest, he's the main inspiration behind this video. But if there was anyone that it truly applies to and has done since the very outset of their career, it's none other than the final rapper on our list. Since he was a teenager, Joey Badass has been infusing the spirit of boom bap rap into the contemporary era. Evading trap music and the Dirty South revivalism that was popular in his city at the time, Joey was still in high school when he started getting buzz. But what no one remembers is that he had to scrape and claw to get it in the first place. Ultimately, Joey was rejected by World Star Hip Hop, but he knew that his talent was undeniable and thus began to distribute himself. So he got creative.
I titled it as 15-year-old freestyles for World Star. And my thinking, right, the way I was looking at it was, it's so good that nobody would dare second guess that this wasn't on World Star. And that's exactly what happened. And I was also smart enough to leave my contact information on the video. So one day I was going to school, I got a message from who was Johnny Shipes, who was my first manager, who ultimately became my first manager. But he hit me up, he reached out, and he said, yo, I just saw your video on World Star, and I want to talk to you about signing to my label.
After that, the rest is history. From there, he dropped one of the greatest debut mixtapes of all time with 1999. From there, he mounted up to deliver a string of great records over the next few years, all the while letting it be known that he felt he could go toe-to-toe with any MC. But even though he's demonstrated his willingness to challenge rappers like Kendrick Lamar, it feels desperate because he hasn't exactly reached a level where general hip-hop fans perceive them as equals. Make no mistake, bar for bar, there's no debate that Joey could tangle with anyone. But the problem is that because he came out of the gate and was hailed as the man to bring boom bap back, he's basically been incapable of escaping the idea that he isn't fit for the mainstream of today. In turn, has created a situation where his pen is platinum certified due to his work with Post Malone on Rockstar, even if his own music isn't. Another issue Joey has suffered from is that, at times, his confidence on social media has been misinterpreted as arrogance. For example, when he said that he inspired Hov's 444, even though Jay never actually said this himself.
And you know, honestly, I feel like I was an inspiration to that album. Honestly, I know I was an inspiration to that album. There's nothing nobody could tell me, you know what I'm saying? I put certain pressure on these OGs in the rap game, like they know what they gotta talk about now. Because they got this young Joey Badass coming out talking about this before they got the chance to talk about us. Now he on.
Because of comments like this, it almost seems like he's delusional and seeks validation from the legends in the game as a way to depict the standing he believes he should have in the industry. Now, fresh from throwing stones at Kendrick and the entire West Coast by claiming that there was too much clicking on his recently released song, The Ruler's Back, it's clear that Joey is ready to make another attempt at the crown that he believes he's earned. But after his last album, 2000, peaked 20 spots below where All American Badass did 5 years prior on the Billboard charts, it's clear that he's got some ground to make up. But when it comes to getting flowers, this is something that the next man who was perhaps brought into the game a decade or two late knows all about. An immensely talented Floridian rapper who can deliver a sculpted 16 or an off-the-dome freestyle at any moment's notice, Denzel Curry has been around since the days of Raider Clan. Over time, he managed to escape Space Ghost Perp's shadow, branching out as the self-proclaimed king of the mischievous South. Where tracks like Ultimate marked him out as a SoundCloud rap mainstay, every project he's ever unveiled has felt like an exercise in exhibiting his versatility. From the conceptual right of Taboo and Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, through to his rugged ode to Florida with Zoo, Zeltron has routinely killed it and racked up endless praise in the process. But all the while, it's felt like there's an innate ceiling on the level of attention he could receive from fans outside of his core. And because of this, Denzel has been waging war against the notion that he's the underground king. People saying I'm underrated is becoming overrated, he said way back in 2018. I'd rather you say I'm great or I'm garbage. For a long time, Denzel seemed to be getting overlooked, particularly when you compare his career trajectory to that of his classmates in the 2016 XXL Cypher and Lil Uzi, Yachty, 21, and Kodak. All these men weren't just talented artists. They were essentially picked to run hip-hop for the next generation. Meanwhile, Zell, who was objectively a better rapper than any of them, was left behind. In the past, Denzel has even admitted that it bothered him, but some encouraging cosigns kept him going. The guys from the XXL class elevated, and I felt like I was still in the same spot, he said in 2017. That's when I thought, what am I really doing this for? Then I went to Coachella and I met Drake for the first time. He's a fan of my music, and I was like, what just happened? It made me feel like, damn, if someone like him is listening and he had the decency to tell me, I need to keep doing this. Still on his grind, Zell continued to release critically acclaimed projects, and on 2022's Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, he delivered what was one of the finest hip-hop albums of that whole year. But what's important is that he didn't achieve this by conforming to what people like Uzi or Kodak were doing. The hard-fought success actually comes from leaning into what makes him unique, as opposed to the other way around. And while the love that he's garnering might not be the Billboard hits that he might deserve, Denzel has made peace with it, and instead has his own metrics for when things are working and when they're not.
How do you measure personally the success of a project? Like, is it the streaming numbers? Is it first album
reviews?
Is it first week sales? Is it critical reviews?
We never really pay attention to first week sales because the fans show up to the show. If your fans are showing up, that's what's important.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? If I could constantly keep touring every year, then I'm successful.
As for the notion that he's destined to reside outside of the mainstream, everything he's said in recent years and in the aftermath of unveiling his latest mixtape, King of the Mischievous South Part 2, it's clear that he's made his peace with where he's at in the culture. Now, gazing forward into the years to come, Denzel is likely cooking up a new project as we speak, but now he can bask in the joy of the flowers that he's already receiving, and hopefully, there's more where that comes from. For all of these rappers, their talent was never in doubt. The real question, however, is whether they can carve out the kind of legacy their abilities deserve. Ultimately, one truth stands the test of time. Classic music lasts forever, and if that's what they're truly creating, then their music will stand tall for years to come.